Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is the 2012 edition of Rotten Tomatoes Got It Wrong for the decade of the 2010s. Here we are at the end of another decade, and to give a retrospective of the films that came out in the past 10 years, I'm inviting special guests to come and join me and to discuss the over and underrated films of said years. So in saying that, my guest and I both will be coming up with 5 films that we think were either overscored or underscored when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes scores. And joining me to discuss the films that the tomato meter didn't get quite right in 2012, I have my friend Ren Geekness. So Ren, go ahead and kick us off with your list.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for having me on your video, Larry, talking about films that Rotten Tomatoes got wrong. That's something that they love to do, isn't it? Rotten Tomatoes. It's my favorite site of all time. And Larry was kind enough to give me an actually very good year, one in which I have many unpopular opinions that clash against Rotten Tomatoes scores. The year of 2012, the year that The Avengers came out, and then the week after Battleship came out. Whew! So let's not waste any more time and let me just spread anger and chaos through the internet, because my first movie is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes at 72%. And this film should undoubtedly, in my mind, be rotten, and that is The Amazing Spider-Man. This film is bad. From how Peter decides to be Spider-Man, he starts being Spider-Man for revenge. And he's an asshole. Not to mention the really bad villain, the coincidental things that happen throughout the film, the cranes that the construction workers put on in front of him for him to get to the tower. And then the promise he makes to George Stacy only to 5 minutes later, boom, going back on that promise. The Amazing Spider-Man should be rotten, everyone. It should not be anywhere near a 72%, and that's my first unpopular opinion. There are many more to come. Now I'm going with a film that is at a 32% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't necessarily think this is a great film. Not by a long shot. But I think it should be on the higher 40s, lower 50s maybe, and that is Man on a Ledge. Nobody else probably remembers this movie. I'm just realizing that now. It stars Sam Worthington, it stars Elizabeth Banks, and I thought it was a really engaging thriller for the most part. It has a lot of problems, as I said. Shouldn't be anywhere higher than lower 50s, high 40s, and that's it. I just think that 32 is way too low for a thriller like this. Such an inventive one for the time, at least. My next film is another certified fresh film at 85%, and people are going to start thinking I hate superhero movies. I'm going to start being called the Martin Scorsese of YouTube movie reviewers. The movie is Chronicle. I really didn't like Chronicle. Now, I understand the merits that Chronicle has, and I don't necessarily think it should be rotten. Or at least by normal standards, it shouldn't be rotten. I'd put it in the 50s. High 50s, let's say that. But I know 50s in Rotten Tomatoes are rotten scores still. Which doesn't make sense, but we'll go with that. So even though I don't like this film as much as many people do, I'd put this film in the high 50s. Maybe even low 60s. I'll be generous. Let's put it in the low 60s. Oh, my next movie. My next movie is one of my all-time favorites. It was on my top 10 of 2012. It sits at a 52 rotten score, which again doesn't make sense because it's over 50. But this film should certainly be fresh, if not certified fresh. Let's go with high 70s, low 80s. This film is John Carter. This film is unlike any other sci-fi at the time. It is one of the original sci-fi books ever written. I mean, the movie is based on one of the original sci-fi books ever written. I loved this film. I love the color, I love the action, I love the adventure aspect to it. I love how creative it was with its premise and with its adventure, and I really wanted to see more, but the film didn't make any money because apparently the marketing was terrible. I honestly don't remember thinking the marketing was either good or bad, but that's what I hear nowadays. I just know that I love John Carter. I watch it at least once a year. And my final film sits at a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is one of those that I'm not sure where I'd put it. I'd put it higher than it is, but I still think that 50s should be a fresh scale. Again, this film sits at a 56, and I quite enjoy it. Let's say I'd put it in the high 60s. Not more than that. That movie is Bourne Legacy. I had a lot of fun with this film. I thought Jeremy Renner was great in role. I thought Rachel Weisz was great in her role. Even though her role is not the best, her character is not the best. I think many people disliked that they were going out of Matt Damon territory with the Bourne franchise, but I also think the film loses a lot of its edge because it makes so many callbacks and it depends so much on the main Bourne movies to tell its story. I think it hung on to those a little bit too close. So those are my unpopular opinions. I think the internet has caught on fire because I talked smack of The Amazing Spider-Man, and I know a lot of people love it. I wish I did love it. Thank you so much, Larry, for having me on your video. I actually had a lot of fun researching for this and making this for you. So I hope you guys love it. I hope whoever else comes on this video has a lot of fun doing it. I can't wait to watch everyone else's video and the final result. Once more, Larry, thank you so much. And you guys can find me everywhere at Ren Geekness. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and I hope you come check me out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ren, for joining me here on my channel and being a part of this series. I've been looking forward to collaborating with you again and having it be here on the channel, and I'm so glad that you came on board and gave your unpopular opinions here. Everyone, make sure, if you are not already, go ahead and check out the Ren Geekness channel, as well as his Instagram, his Twitter, and I will have all of those links in the description down below. Subscribe to his channel because it is well worth it. 2012 was an interesting year when it came to films in terms of the Rotten Tomatoes scores. And I'm going to say, I have some movies on my list that And I'm going to say, I have some movies here on my list that I think maybe people forgot even existed. But that's beside the point. Let's jump in. I'm going to kick my list off with a film I think was a bit unfairly maligned by critics, and that is John Carter. I first saw John Carter in the theater at a drive-in, and I was like glued to the screen. I thought it was so intriguing. It was beautiful and wonderfully animated. Taylor Kitsch was really strong as our titular character, and it just worked for me. Yeah, there are some slow bits. There are some moments that I think, okay, let's move on to the next action set piece. But it definitely laid down the lore in interesting fashion. Now, in saying all of that, it only has a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I definitely think it should be closer to like the 70 percentile. But unfortunately, audiences by and large agreed with critics and just didn't watch this at all. So it laid all this foundation, did all of this cool world building, all for naught. And that's a shame because I think John Carter deserved better. Another film I think was judged too harshly, well, that's Hotel Transylvania. And I'm going to be honest, I think this is a running theme for the animated series. Look, I find Adam Sandler as grating as the next person. If it's a live action film starring Adam Sandler, most times I'm going to try to avoid it. Because I just cannot. I can't. But in animated form, his antics are much more palatable. And this is such a fun premise, a good Halloween time family film in animation. I think it has its funny moments. Of course, there is some potty humor here because it is Adam Sandler. But the animation looks nice. The creatures and the way that they incorporate their spookiness into the plot is a lot of fun. And it has some great things to say about being different and prejudice and being a prejudiced parent particularly. And I thought all of that came across really well. It has a heart at the center of it that works well. And as a trilogy, I definitely think it's at least up to par with, say, the Despicable Me trilogy, which has been treated much more kindly by critics. So Hotel Transylvania has been done wrong by the tomato meter, and it all started here with the original. And then my final pick for underrated films of the year, I have People Like Us. This little film starring Chris Pine and Elizabeth Banks had a lot of heart to me. It only has a 53% on the tomato meter, but I found the story to be really interesting while also being very heartfelt. I also saw this in the theater and I came out really enjoying myself. I think both Chris Pine and Elizabeth Banks are great and they have wonderful chemistry together. It's a beautiful film. In terms of cinematography and how it's shot, it actually was really unique for films of this type, and it stood out to me. I guess it gets a little bit slow and the story is slightly convoluted. But much like Hotel Transylvania, I think it has a great heart to it and it really works because of that heart. And I think critics were just a bit harsh on it. And that actually is going to lead me into a film I don't think has enough heart to it. And it's the overrated movie of Friends with Kids. Okay, so I'm somebody who doesn't describe himself as a kid person at all. I don't really want children of my own. Kids are just not really for me in large doses. I know, right? I'm a horrible person. But this film, it just didn't have a heart to it when it came to any of the messages of being adult friends with no children amongst like family groups. Amongst all that, it didn't really have anything poignant to say. It didn't have anything new to say about any of its subjects. But maybe the biggest sin of all that comes with Friends with Kids is that it just wasn't funny. This was supposed to be like a dramedy, a good dramedy that was funny but poignant, and it does none of that. We have an all-star cast of Maya Rudolph, Kristen Stewart, John Hamm, and the like. This huge cast full of great comedians, and I was just like bored and found it to be overly like cynical, and then it switches to overly cheese. It didn't work for me across the board. So I'm not sure how something like this gets a 68% and then People Like Us dwells down at 53. I probably would swap the two. And then finally, I'm closing things off with another overscored film, and that's Magic Mike. So Magic Mike is like the Steven Soderbergh deep movie about male strippers, and I just didn't care. I'm gonna be honest with you now, and maybe this is just expectation. I much preferred Magic Mike XXL to the first Magic Mike because it just sucked most of the fun out of the movie. I went in for like a fun Channing Tatum male stripper movie, and we get that in doses, but we don't spend nearly enough time with the male strippers, whether it's through their camaraderie, their friendship, learning about them outside of Channing Tatum alone. And then we get a lot of that in the sequel. A fun movie that's about like friendship and camaraderie, and it's a lot more fun. And it's just a blast. And that's what I was hoping for in this film. The stripping scenes are fun. All the guys look great and they dance pretty great on a good show, but it's done in a very indie look, like the grainy, gritty cinematography didn't really work all that great for me here. Alex Pettyfer is fine, but also a bit lifeless as our like little protege character, and then Cody Horn as our main lead female love interest was terrible. I really find her acting to be so bad in Magic Mike. She brings the film down a lot for me. Plus, I didn't really feel any chemistry between her and Channing Tatum. The darker stuff works okay, the deep angles we try to go with, but we never explore it to an extent that would really matter to me. And I guess it's Steven Soderbergh, and that's why everyone thinks it's greatness. It truly is a magical Magic Mike movie, but it didn't work for me. The juxtaposition wasn't executed well enough, and I'll just as well skip straight to the sequel. Sorry. So those are my picks for the films that the tomato meter got wrong, as well as the picks from our friend Ren Geekness. Once again, make sure that you are heading over to his channel, subscribing, following him across social medias, and showing him some love. And make sure that you're joining in the conversation with Ren and I. Comment down below, what did you think of our picks? And more importantly, what films from 2012 do you think the tomato meter got wrong? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit either one of us and both of us up on Twitter. And if you liked this video, make sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on my latest videos, including every new weekly release in this series as we work our way through the 2010s. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!